I want to talk about pronouns. I don't mean they, them, he, him, or she, her. Those are mine, by the way. I want to talk about our collective pronouns, we, us, and what it means to me to identify as we, us, especially after this year that we've had together. Shortly after October 7th, I started receiving texts from one of my friends that I hadn't heard from in a while, sometimes just to me and sometimes in a group of other women, things related to Israel, the hostages, anti-Semitism, all the things that we've all been worried about over these past months. In May, she sent me a screenshot of an Instagram post by a popular Jewish social media personality who goes by the handle Hot Jewish Energy. And it said this: "Let's take a moment for the converts to Judaism. You have willingly chosen to be part of one of the most oppressed minorities in history. You have willingly chosen to be on the receiving end of one of the oldest forms of hate, all because of your love and connection to Jewish values, customs, and history. You are just as Jewish, if not more Jewish, as those who were born into it. Fun fact, your soul has always been Jewish. We salute you. We cherish you. Magen David emoji." In case you can't tell by the tone of my voice, I found this well-meaning pop Judaism meme offensive. I didn't like the tone. I didn't like the insinuation that a convert would choose oppression any more than any of us have. And even though I think it was intended as a compliment, I didn't like the quantification of a convert being just as Jewish, if not more. Why call out anyone's amount of Jewishness, even as a compliment? Or congratulate someone for being just as Jewish as you? But most of all, I hated the we statements. We salute you. We cherish you. Who is the implicit we? It felt so othering, like there was a category of Jews whose identity didn't need to be questioned, and another group. Considering all the things we've seen on social media this year, all the inflammatory, horrible, provocative, hateful things, considering all that, if you're wondering why a seemingly friendly social media post got me so riled up, it's because it hit me close to home. It's because I am a convert. This past February, I celebrated 20 years since the day I went to the Beit Din in Mikvah and officially joined this tribe. And in those 20 years, I've heard my share of insensitive, obnoxious, objectifying, and othering comments from really well-meaning and loving people. I have all kinds of stories about that I could share. Everything from the person I've never met before who came up to me in the Kiddush line on Shabbat to tell me that they enjoyed the service so much and are impressed because they heard about my background. The new member who was overly excited to take me to lunch just to hear my story. Comments about how I don't look Jewish. The local Jewish magazine using a picture of me and a friend of mine who is also a convert and happens to be Black. Our picture was used without our knowledge or permission for the cover of an article entitled "The New Jew." We weren't part of the article, only me with my blonde hair and her with her dark skin, the poster children for it. Someone who's become one of my biggest champions and supporters, who pointed jovially at me midway through a bagel and lox and said, "Look how Jewish you've become." "What do you mean?" I asked them. "Well, I'm sure you didn't grow up eating that." "Actually, it was my favorite food as a child," I retorted and rolled my eyes. "My family ate it every week." The friend of a B'nai Mitzvah family, this was many years ago, not here at CBI, who looked me up and down with what felt like contempt after I just finished leading my first Shavuot service, and I felt really good about that service, really proud of it, and said, "No one will ever believe you." And many more moments I could tell you about, big and small, that made me feel like there was a we, us, and I wasn't in it. Earlier this year, I participated in a concert with 20 other cantorial colleagues in LA. After the concert, amid hugs and promises to collaborate again soon, I took a selfie with two of my Cantor friends who also happened to have a conversion story of their own. As I was about to snap the shot, one of them said something like, "It's the Cantor converts." And we all smiled at the camera. And then after that, the other friend said to me, "Wait, Amy, are you out?" Meaning, was I public about being Jewish by choice? And the truth was, yes, but I've become really gun-shy about sharing this about myself. In the early days, it was often the first piece of information I would offer. It was a conversation I had a lot with Jewish and non-Jewish friends. But over the years, I've stopped talking about it. I've looked for ways to avoid that conversation or redirect it. I've gone dark. Have I felt ashamed of my story? No, it's not that. I'm really proud of it, actually. But it can be scary to join an ancient culture with collective memories, traumas, traditions that have been passed down ledor vador through the generations. It takes a lot of chutzpah to do that. Maybe hot Jewish energy was right about one thing. The truth is, there's nothing more Jewish than being a convert. The first Jew was himself a convert. God told Abraham, "Lech lecha, go. Go forth from your native land and from your parents' house to the land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing." This is our origin story, all of us. Our people started as a convert. I came to Judaism on a solitary path. My journey was highly individualized. I did not choose Judaism for a boyfriend or fiance, though that's a wonderful reason. I did not grow up next door to a Jewish family that had me over for Shabbat sometimes, though that's also an amazing reason. I was not friends with a single Jewish person until I was out of college. But I was born with a Jewish neshama, a Jewish soul. And the truth of my story, the short version of it, is I found my way home. I grew up in an evangelical Christian home in a suburb of Dallas, Texas. Go Cowboys. We went to church every week, youth group, summer camp, family camp. And though neither of my parents are ordained, both have long served as lay leaders and teachers in their community. My dad has participated as a teaching leader with an international interdenominational organization called Bible Study Fellowship for 33 years. It's an organization that, according to their website, engages hundreds of thousands of members of all ages and stages across the globe, studying God's Word chapter by chapter together. For the past 13 of those years, my dad has been a member of the area team for the Dallas-Fort Worth men's chapter. 6 of those years as the area team teaching leader, where he delivered a weekly sermon to more than 500 men of various Christian affiliations. My mother has also taught in the women's chapter of BSF, has led women's weekend retreats, is the go-to volunteer at her church. She's the one who named our house Rehovot. It's from the story of Isaac in Genesis 26, digging wells in Canaan. She and Dad were studying that chapter the week they bought the lot where they would build the house. Rehovot. It literally means God has made room. She put a wooden sign on the front of the house, Rehoboth, when we moved into it in 1981. It was sometimes confusing for people when they came over to visit. "I thought your last name was Robinson." I like to say that I grew up in a family that taught me to love Torah, but we didn't call it that. From a young age, I learned the stories of Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Rachel and Leah, Moses and the children of Israel, David and Saul and Jonathan, Samuel, Bathsheba, Solomon, Rehoboam and Jeroboam, Ahab and Jezebel, Samson, Delilah, Joash, Hezekiah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ruth, and Esther. These were my childhood stories. From a young age, I had an earnest belief and connection to God. I talked to God throughout the day and every night. I felt close to God when I sang hymns and praise songs, and I loved participating in youth choir. In high school, I attended and eventually volunteered at the Dawson McAllister Youth Mega Conferences. I was a teen leader at my church. I volunteered at an organization called the Hope Line, run by Shepherd Ministries, whose founder attended my parents' church. The Hope Line was a Christian call-in center where people could talk to someone who would listen and pray with them. A book that I read during high school opened a door for me. Edith Schaeffer's book, Christianity is Jewish. It encouraged Christians to embrace the Jewishness of their faith. She claimed that Christianity had become disconnected from its Hebraic foundations and needed to reframe itself in the context of Torah, but of course she called it the Old Testament. It's been decades since I've picked up that book, and I can't really tell you how that viewpoint would strike me now, but as a 16-year-old Christian girl in the buckle of the Bible Belt, it really blew my mind. When I graduated from high school, I left Dallas to attend Biola University in La Mirada. That's how I got here, or to California anyways. I received a scholarship for the volunteer work I had done at Shepherd Ministries, and I entered the music department as a piano major. My years at Biola were filled with deep longing, angst, and depression as I sought to make sense of the faith to which I felt so attached and in which I felt increasingly alien. That connection to God was still there, though I had many questions about it, but nothing around me felt right. I thought it was me. Maybe there was something wrong with me. Maybe I didn't have enough faith. Maybe I hadn't found the right church. I tried attending a lot of different ones, various denominations and styles, but nothing felt right. My junior year at Biola, I took spring semester off and studied for a term in Oxford, England. It was an incredible chapter of my life for many reasons. Teens, I recommend it. Take a year abroad if you can. While I was in Oxford, I was invited to a Passover Seder, hosted by Rabbi Shmuley Boteach of the Oxford L'Chaim Society, a.k.a. Chabad. I had never attended a Seder before, but my roommate had, and she said I would love it, so we went. Before the Seder began, I met Rabbi Shmuley, and we sat down to do Mariv, the evening prayers. Of course, there was a mechitza, men and women sitting separately. In fact, one Oxford feminist woman left huffily when she realized that was the case. And I held a prayer book in my hands that was completely in Hebrew, no English. As Shmuley began to daven, I had no idea what he was saying. I wasn't sure if I was on the right page of the book, but I remember feeling like somehow I knew those words. Like it was a song I was listening to in the car and trying to sing along with. The words were just on the tip of my tongue, leaping off the page at me. I didn't know them. I didn't know what they meant. But I had an undeniable feeling that somehow they were mine. These holy words, they were mine, and I was dying to say them out loud. Shmuley started the Seder with the words from the Haggadah that each of us must individually see ourselves as having been brought out of Egypt. Tonight, this was not just the story of the children of Israel, it was our own story. And it was a story I knew well, but I'd never told that story or heard it told using matzah and salt water and parsley. I loved hearing it that way. And as I recall it now, I feel that some of the pieces of my puzzle were coming together in that moment. On the one hand, here was a ritual rich with text, tradition, and meaning. We read the words from the Torah, God saved us biyad chazaka uvizroa netuya, with an outstretched arm and awesome power. I was on the edge of my seat. And meanwhile, Shmuley's little children, he had 6 of them, were running around the room, screaming and playing throughout the entire evening. Shut up, Mendy! He shouted at them. It was in my mind at the time, high church meets low church. And something about that combination felt like home to me. The Seder lasted well into the night. It was an Orthodox Seder, and we dutifully fulfilled our mitzvah of drinking 4 full cups of wine and then some. And sometime after 2 a.m., because it was Yantif and they could not take a car, my roommate and I and the friend who had invited us that night walked home with Shmuley and Debbie Boteach, each of us pushing a stroller or carrying a baby for them. I don't really remember our conversation on that walk. We were pretty drunk. And I did not know yet that I was personally walking on a pathway toward Judaism. But I just remember feeling, wow, what a special night. After I graduated from Biola the following year, and for the next 3 years, I started reading more about Judaism. I checked out all the books I could find at the public library. I rented the VHS tapes of Abba Eban's PBS series about Israel. I put a sort of mezuzah on my door. I lit Shabbat candles occasionally. Moved by my experience at Oxford, I started hosting my own Passover Seder each year. I was doing all these things on my own in the context of the only worldview I really knew, which was from my Christian upbringing, and with no Jewish guidance or learning. In 2003, I met someone at a barbecue who told me about the Lewis and Judith Miller Intro to Judaism program at AJU. At the time, it was still called the UJ. I looked it up, and I immediately signed up. Converting to Judaism still had not entered my mind yet. I was just super excited to finally learn with a real rabbi. And that rabbi was Tzvi Dershowitz of blessed memory. I drove every Sunday from Fullerton to the UJ campus to attend classes. I participated in the weekend Shabbaton hosted by the program's director, Rabbi Neil Weinberg, predecessor of Rabbi Adam Greenwald, who would take over the leadership of the program just 7 years later. Each class was amazing. Even though it was an introduction program, I found every lesson deeply compelling. There was so much to learn, but each new thing struck a chord in my heart and mind as if part of me already knew that thing or had heard it before, even though I hadn't. I started learning Hebrew letters and vowels, and I bought a book of Psalms in Hebrew and started trying to sound out the Hebrew version of some of my favorite Bible verses. I felt relieved. All the years I had tried to find my place in the Christian world, all the wrestling I'd been doing, thank God there are other people like this, whatever this is, but there are people who think like I think. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Here, I could be myself. Here were my people. Midway through the intro program, when I realized that I could convert, it was almost a no-brainer. It was both obvious and earth-shattering at the same time. Oh, I'm Jewish. The intro program was some 50 miles from where I lived, so they connected me to a local synagogue. I met Rabbi Eli Spitz of Congregation B'nai Israel, who agreed to be my local Orange County sponsor. That year was 2003. I bought high holiday tickets and joined CBI for services when they were being held at the big church. I remember listening to Cantor Tilchin chanting, and I thought she was incredible. The day of my big din in mikvah was a homecoming. More than a conversion, it was a reunion, a completion, a validation of deeply held longings and loves that I had carried since I was a small child. Whenever I've shared this story in the past, if I'm talking to another Jewish person, the first question out of their mouth invariably is, what about your family? Or what did your parents think? Something like this, right? And just interestingly, if I'm talking to a Christian person, the first question out of their mouth is almost always something like, what about Jesus? I think those two questions sum up so much about those two worlds, right? Judaism is not just a religion. It's not just a creed or a theology. It's not a set of beliefs. It's not just a practice, though we do practice it daily, weekly, cyclically, marking our calendars with the most robust ritual life. It's not just a way to pray, though we do that every day. It's my favorite way to pray, though. It's not just a set of ethics or law, though we have a sophisticated system of ethical debates and legal discussions. Being Jewish is part of being a people. But to answer the question, yeah, it was hard for my family. There's so much I could tell you about that. At the beginning, I felt like I let my parents down, and I felt guilty about that. The first conversation was so painful. The one when I told them I was planning to convert. They didn't get it. It hurt. But ultimately, they expressed their love for me beyond understanding or agreeing with my decision. For years after my conversion, my grandmother, who was a very conservative Christian, has had a great influence on my life, who I love deeply. She would send me letters and cassette tapes with sermons of her favorite ministers. She even bought me a cassette tape recorder when she realized that I didn't have anything to listen to her cassette tapes on. She told me to put it by the bed and listen to them at night. For my 30th birthday, she sent me a spiral-bound book, 26 single-space typed pages, entitled Faith. It was filled with Bible verses proving that I was wrong. For months, I didn't look at it. Then I finally did. I decided to make a photocopy of it and marked it up, only commenting on the parts that I liked or agreed with, and ignoring all the other stuff. I sent back my markups to her. Amen. Or actually, amen. Sorry. Yes. How beautiful. I didn't know that part of your life, Grandma. Thanks for sharing. I love you. There have been some awkward moments, too, like the time just a few years ago when my extended family got together for Christmas, and my mom asked me to round everyone up in the living room. My cantor brain kicked in, and I started singing a nigun to the tune of Joy to the World. My parents, my siblings, my grandmothers, my aunts, uncles, and cousins all looked around at each other very uncomfortably. No one knew what to do. Ari, my husband, lovingly joined in. Yay, nine, 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 nine. And yes, we do go to my parents' house for Christmas. We don't celebrate it because we're Jewish, but my parents and the rest of my family are not. And we honor them by making it a priority to be with them on their holiday. And my parents and siblings have reciprocated by making visits to us for Pesach, contributing to the cooking and decorating. My mom is amazing with all of that, and my sister too. Sharing these moments is critical in our extended multi-faith family. Over the years, it's gotten easier and harder. 20 years in, I'm not only Jewish, I'm Jewish clergy. Almost every aspect of my life is saturated in Jewish culture and ritual. So in some ways, the distance between my parents' lives and mine has become greater. But their willingness, acceptance, and love has also grown. One year, when there was a family gathering in October, I let them know that I could come, but I would need to have a sukkah. My mom said, I'll Google that. And when I got to their house, she had borrowed a sukkah from a Jewish friend who didn't use theirs anymore, and she put it up in the backyard with decorations and lights. When my kids spent a week with my parents this summer, my mom found 2 birthday candles and set them up for my boys to light on Friday night. I didn't ask her to do that. She sent me a video of Ezra waving his hands over the candles and saying the blessing. On the day of my Beit Din, I was proud to take the Hebrew name Ami, which means my people. But I came from a world that believes in truth with a capital T. And it took me some years before I really started to understand, let alone feel, what it is like to be a member of this people. Even though I attended CBI a little bit during my conversion process, it was 6 more years before I worked up the courage to start showing up in this building regularly. It was the weirdest feeling. The thing that was closest to me, my faith, my heart, my identity, was also the thing that I was most afraid of. I felt so connected to Judaism and also kind of an outsider. It takes some courage to become part of an ancient tribe. And it takes some time. For me, it took a caring Chabad Rebbitzin, a Jewish chiropractor who invited me to Kabbalah class, a friend who made sure I was called up for my first Aliyah, which was my unplanned and glorious bat mitzvah, a neighbor who helped me learn to chant Torah, a group of young Jewish people who wanted to sing a cappella music together, a husband who always makes me feel like I'm a Torah scholar, though I will never achieve the level of learning he has, the best South African in-laws in the world, an interdenominational seminary that believed in me, 3 rabbis who allowed me to share the bima with them and learn and grow as a Hazzan. When everyone in my family had COVID at the same time, a community member who lovingly texted me that she'd made tofu and vegetables for dinner, and could she bring me some? A set of Pesach dishes in plastic tubs in our garage, lumber and holiday lights stashed away each year for Sukkot, seeing my sons wearing kippot, all of that. All of that. The solitary path I started on to Judaism slowly became wider and fuller and louder. God made room. And that's when I started really feeling like a member of this tribe. When the Israelites stood at Sinai, before we received the Torah, before the thunder, before the shofar, at the base of the mountain, we were already called Bnei Yisrael. Our tribal identity, our peoplehood preceded the giving of the Torah. We were a people first. To be Jewish at its core is to be a family. It hurts to be othered or separated in some way from that we, us. There is a tradition in Judaism that we never mention a convert's background. Once someone becomes Jewish, it's as if they've been Jewish their whole life, period. I didn't convert in order to be Jewish by choice. I converted to be a Jew. Jewish law protects the delicate and sensitive nature of being a newbie in an ancient tribe. But we can choose to share our stories, and some of us will, and I'm doing it right now. Our stories are ours to share, and no one else's. And I share this one with you with deep trust that you will hold it with love and respect. And I promise to do the same. Many of us, and I don't just mean converts, many of us in this room have felt unworthy or scared to show up in the Jewish community. Many of us feel inadequate when it comes to our Jewish practice and knowledge. So many people tell me that they don't know the right places to bow in the service and they don't understand our prayers. And yet, every single person here has chosen Judaism. Every person in this room is choosing it right now. And this year, more than ever, we've come together as a people in prayer, in volunteerism, in tzedakah, in tears. Am Yisrael. So yeah, I'm out. Hineni. Here I am. I'm out of the dark. And I'm holding up my head, shining my light proudly as a member of this tribe. Ami, my people. Am Yisrael. A friend told me once, you need to let your light shine all the way. Not just to here or here, but all the way out to here. Barchi nafshi et Adonai. Bless the Lord, O my soul. V'chol keravai et shem kodsho, and everything in me. Bless God's holy name. My people. Now more than ever, we, us, ours, all of us, we've got to let our little light shine. Shana Tova.